Hello and welcome along to Not Another Sports Pod, episode 5, with myself, David Windsor, and Mr. Oliver Wilson. It's July the 15th, 2024. Last night, England lost in the final of the European Championships against Spain. And Ollie, you just said off pod to me, it was never coming home. Was there any point in that final that you thought England were going to win?
I did, and I'll go as far as saying that there was a point last night before kickoff where I said to you, I'm not sure if I even wanted England to win. I think that was a lot of my kind of like not journalistic. That makes me sound far too highbrow of a sports broadcaster. But it was just my own kind of apathy towards an England team that hadn't played that great and hadn't inspired, taking on a Spain side that to me had been the best team in the tournament pretty much since the word go. And you combine that with then the kind of irritation of it's coming home, and it kind of was like overly excited. And there was the BBC put it as name is on the trophy sort of feeling that England fans seemed to have going into last night. And it's like that kind of person you just keep going back to, though, because as that game went on, I found myself rooting for England. I annoyed a friend of mine by using the quote, patriotism is the last refuge of a scoundrel. And yet I still got drawn into that level of patriotism and wanting England to win. And then I was watching it in a bar in the centre of Edinburgh, and all the Scots, when Spain scored, started celebrating, and that kind of hurt a little because, why am I 100 miles down the road from the border? Not even that, and suddenly I've walked into a place where everybody doesn't want England to win, except for me and maybe two other people in that pub. And so there was a part of me that wanted it to happen, and then there was a part of me that thought, when Cole Palmer strikes at home, right, game on, because there was 5 minutes of urgency and tempo, and suddenly you thought, wow, we've suddenly got them on their heels slightly. They thought this was in the bag with a 1-0 win and we hadn't produced much. And then suddenly that layoff from Bellingham, that strike from Palmer, and you're suddenly getting the 3 lines. You're thinking about that tattoo that's going to come on the chest tomorrow morning in a dodgy tattoo studio in Scotland. And then
I don't think you're alone, Ollie, by the way, in taking the viewpoint that, look, England are nowhere near the best side in this tournament, and not wanting England to win, but just being like shrug of the shoulders, look, we're not good enough to win it. And I heard this a lot before the final, in the sense that I don't think people would have been devastated if we didn't win. And of course, we didn't win it. And I think that was quite a common viewpoint. But as the final went on, I was just thinking, and we've kind of talked about when England are going to win a major international trophy in men's, but I was thinking it'd be really nice if this does happen in my lifetime, just completely selfishly, but also for, everyone else in my generation. Like, I don't want to die having not seen England win an international trophy in men's. Do you know what I mean? And that is starting to become, as I get older and the tournaments slip by, it's starting to become a real realization in my head that might actually happen. As in, the earliest we can win an international tournament, if you just part the Nations League next summer for a moment, is the World Cup in 2026, right? And that'll be 60 years. And I don't know, it's just kind of sad that it's taken this long. But the final, look, Spain were the best side. And in the second half, you saw why we failed at the final hurdle in so many tournaments under different managers, by the way, because Spain just don't panic. They're a proper football side. They're coached well. There's a calm. There's a sense of we'll just pop it around and play our triangles and do what we've been doing on the training pitch, and it will come. And it did come. And they just played with a little weight off their shoulders, which I get it because they've won international tournaments more recently. But I just felt like that huge weight on the shoulders of the England national team it's so hard to get rid of, and you saw that in the second half.
They're also phenomenal off the ball. Spain last night highlighted that. Every time, even Pickford's just on the edge of his own 18-yard box with the ball, he's got nowhere to go with it. And England didn't create that level of pressure off the ball themselves. You look at when Spain were knocking it around in their back line, there's 1, maybe 2 people pressing. But every time, Spain limited outlet balls and had maybe 2, sometimes 3 men around the ball at all times. And I don't know why that can't be put into the equation for an English national team. Why nobody looks at that and goes, oh, we need to have this. This is exactly... We can do it on the ball. It's off the ball where you end up losing a game like that. Because if you let Spain sit, and as you say, they're so controlled and calm in possession and in every key moment of that game, if you let them play the ball without harassing them and hurrying them, they just ease into it. And they made it look, possession-wise, very easy. The thing that England did very well was limit chances. And I kind of said at one point in a WhatsApp chat, this is like Atletico Madrid against Barcelona of the mid-2000s, 2010s, where Atleti will sit, soak up Barca's passing football, and then try and take their chances. And Barca will knock the ball around, make it look very easy, and try and use quick, sharp passes or that one moment, that one break in concentration defensively to exploit. And it makes it a fairly even game to watch. It also makes it really nerve-jangling for England fans because you're sat back just soaking up possession and pressure rather than being on the front foot a little more than that you'd like to see them do.
Ollie, let's talk about Gareth Southgate in the future of this England team then, because, I mean, I just scribbled down. Phil Foden's 24, Jude Bellingham's 21, Saka's 22, Rice is 25, Mainoo's 19, right? You've got to do better with that group. You've got to do better with the attacking potential of that group. We can't just plod on. We need to give someone else a go with this group. And I'll tell you who I think that someone else should be in a moment, Ollie. But just as like an attacking group of footballers. That's not even mentioning, by the way, Cole Palmer off the bench and Tony and Watkins and 5 or 6 other footballers that I mentioned that are also supremely talented. Like Gordon barely got a sniff, got 4 minutes this tournament. Like, with this group, we got to win something. We got to do, or we got to do better. We got to have fun in tournaments. We've got to score goals. We got to lose finals 4-3. We can't. We have to win something with this group, and that's why I can't see. I don't think Southgate should have another bash with this group.
I don't think he should have another bash. I think he's been there long enough. He's come closer than I've ever seen to winning these major tournaments. History and his record will say he's one of the best England managers of all time. He just doesn't have that because of 2 finals in the Euros, a loss in a penalty shootout in one of those, a 1-goal loss to the best side in the tournament in the other, a World Cup semi-final that could have been won and a World Cup quarter-final that was heartbreaking, could have been won. So Southgate's taken us so close. I think the fact that he seemingly mismanaged this tournament, you've switched styles and strategies midway through a football tournament shows that you got it wrong at the start, basically. Mm-hmm. And I think, actually, it's a shame because what we saw last night in the first 5 minutes of the game, first 10 minutes of the game, Luke Shaw came out the blocks firing and was awesome. And you looked at that and you went, that's what we've been missing. We missed a natural left-sided fullback for this tournament. It would have provided so much more balance. And if you played this 3-4-3 or however you want to call it with the 2 behind Kane up front in Bellingham and Foden, if we played this for the last 12 to 18 months, I actually think England would have had a far better showing in this competition. And it's just the fact that we've gone away from our normal modus operandi in the middle of a tournament and then played the Netherlands and played the best football we've had all tournament and then almost got one past the Spain side in the final that you think that's the question mark over Southgate in this competition alone. And it's a bit like the penalty substitutions for the last Euros final. That's the question mark that hangs over Southgate's head. Was that the right decision? Should he have brought them on earlier, etc.?
He's obviously such a nice fella. Like, he's obviously such a nice fella. But I just got the list of England football managers, Ollie, in my lifetime, right? And in our lifetime. Bobby Robson, really good coach, came really close. Graham Taylor failed to qualify for the 1994 World Cup. Terry Venables ultimately didn't do it in 1996 in front of a home crowd. Glenn Hoddle got fired for absolutely wacky comments about what people have done in previous lives, right? Kevin Keegan, tremendous footballer, nice fella, ultimately not good enough. Sven-Göran Eriksson had one stuff at club level, played footsie with the FA's secretary, like ultimately wasted a golden generation. Fabio Capello, the only actual standout fucking winner in that list for me. Absolute undisputed winner. But his English wasn't good enough. Like, it wasn't, he could not communicate that with the players. He just couldn't, and that's learning a second language is incomprehensibly hard as an adult, but he just couldn't do it, and ultimately Capello failed, right? Roy Hodgson, nice fella, not good enough. Sam Allardyce wanted a quick buck in some undercover sting, can't even remember what happened, lasted about 60 days. Gareth Southgate, nice fella, not good enough. That's the list. And for me, Ollie, it ends now, and here's what the FA need to do. You go out and you give either Jurgen Klopp or Pep Guardiola a 10-year, 5-tournament contract, which would last until the 2034 World Cup in Saudi Arabia. and you just give them the keys to the kingdom. Whatever they want, you give them. If Pep Guardiola wants to live in Catalonia and work a day and a half a week, you let him do that. If Jurgen Klopp wants to live in his mansion in Mallorca, you let him do that. You give one of those two coaches a 10-year, 5-tournament contract, and we will win a trophy. It's too obvious, it's too clear that that's what would happen. There's no chance that one of those two would not lift an international trophy with England with this group of players. If you have to get down your knees and beg, if you have to make them the most ridiculously high-paid international manager of all time, that's what you do. But the experimentation of nice guys and random coaches and all this, it's over. Like, we can't go another 40 years without winning an international tournament. We just can't. So give Jurgen Klopp or Pep Guardiola the 10-year contract that everyone knows would work.
I think those sorts of managers are too competitive to want to do international football management except for their own nation. I think
Spain, though.
I think
Jurgen... He's from... Yeah, but Pep Guardiola... Jurgen, I take the point, Ollie. Pep Guardiola's Catalan. I don't think he ever manages the Spanish national team.
But do you not think these guys are... They love that hands-on day in, day out. They love tweaking and twisting and messing around on a daily basis. Like, you can tell that a Klopp especially relishes that interaction with the players all day, every day. Like, that's what he brought to that Liverpool side. He brought this family. Well, Pep is like the master technician. He wants to work on things every single day. He wants to be up until 1 o'clock in the morning fiddling around with tape. If you're doing that as an international manager, you don't get that hands-on time in the same way. You're also dealing with clubs trying to prevent their players from being damaged and used too much in an international break, so you can't really mould them how you want to. You don't get that hands-on day in, day out, I'm bringing this young kid and turning him into the exact number 10 that I want to have in my system. And I think that's why international management is so tough, because you get these guys on a limited amount of time, and if you can make it work, you look like a genius. And as I say, Southgate has been so close to looking like a genius, because if he wins one of these major tournaments, we're not saying Southgate, the lovable loser. We're saying Gareth Southgate is Sir Gareth Southgate. We're knighting him. He's up there with Sir Alf Ramsey. Yeah, 100%. So the margins are fine in international football between success and failure, and that is what you have to live and breathe by. And I don't think it attracts that sort of manager in a Pep or a Klopp. And if you're going to say who takes over after Southgate, I haven't got a clue. I still haven't got a clue of who would want this job, because the pressure now has gone up exponentially. It's
a great job, Ollie. It's a great job because you get the statue. You're immortalised. Like, it's a fantastic job for someone. You've had 60 years of failure before. This isn't taking over Liverpool or City or like after Alex Ferguson. This is a cracking job. So I think you make a very, very valid point. But it would have been more valid maybe 6, 8, 10 years ago. Jurgen Klopp has left Liverpool essentially because he does not want... What he's so good at, obviously, is, as you say, like the family unit, the really high intensity, high octane, lives and breathes it every minute, deep connection with the football club. But that's ultimately what's made him leave Liverpool, because I guess his health and his mind and his family they don't want to do that anymore. So this is in many ways the perfect job for him. It is, of course, it's stressful. Of course, it's stressful. For a month every 2 years, which is different to club management. Jurgen Klopp, he can do yoga in Mallorca, and he can wake up at 11 a.m. and then he can check in and have his meeting, and he can do this, and he can watch a couple of tapes of how Bellingham did in Real Madrid, and he can, fly to London for a few games. It's the perfect job for Jurgen. The only thing is, would he feel like he was betraying Germany? And for Pep, again, I completely agree. He's a club coach, but he can't be that forever. Like, grandfather time catches up with everyone, and at some point Pep might want to put his feet up a little bit, and I just think the answer's there, Ollie. The answer's there. It's Guardiola or Klopp, and it really hurts me that the answer to success is there, and we're not seemingly going for it.
But you can be that club coach forever. Look at Wenger, look at Ferguson. Those are people that throughout our time growing up, Sven-Goran Eriksson came in, and people going, oh, why can't we just have he's Scottish, but just get whatever it takes to get Sir Alex through the door and have him running that England team like he's got a United ticket. Get Wenger in, like he's built and immortalised this Arsenal side with an undefeated season. Can you imagine that as England manager? Just throw the kitchen sink and fill it with all the money in the world or whatever. I mean, it's just some guys just don't want to do it and just don't want to happen. And the England management job, there's a few jobs in international management that I think come with an exceptional amount of kind of criticism and newspaper talk and everything like that. I'd put the Italian and the English national team jobs up there as two of the toughest international management jobs on the planet. And what comes with that, in that you said you only get a month of pressure. It's not a month of pressure. It's the qualifying stages, because you could win your group. And if you haven't played well enough against North Macedonia back in September, a year prior to the tournament, people go, oh, this England side looks terrible. What's he doing not giving these guys a chance? Why is he giving him a chance when he's not playing the old guard? We need the old guard in there, but get the old guard out because we need to get these youngsters in. You can't win. And that's been highlighted by this tournament and the fact that Southgate, make a change. No, don't make that change. Make the other change. Oh, that worked out, actually. Oh, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, Cole Palmer on. That was perfect. Great work.
Would you give Southgate the Nations League, assuming we get to the, I can't remember how it works, like get to the sort of final four, isn't it, that gets played in the summer 2025? Would you, if you're the FA, Ollie, and you're kind of undecided, should we give Southgate another 6-year deal, blah, blah, blah? Should we just give him one more year, take him to the Nations League, and then who knows, maybe Klopp's done his year off and Guardiola's left City? What would you do if you're the FA?
No, I think you go and find somebody now, because if you're, well, again, that's the thing that I'm struggling with at the moment, if I'm honest.
Eddie Howe?
Thiago Motta. Go and get Thiago Motta, who's done a great job at Bologna, bringing in another Italian. That worked out well.
Top coach, yeah.
But yeah, I was waiting for that name to crop up at some point when you started saying, and you know who should get it? You know who should get it? Marcelo Gallardo. No, I don't know who, but you want a 2-year lead up to a major tournament. You don't want to cram it into 12 months, especially if you're taking on a new role. Like, it's just not. You want that Nations League to tinker. You want the Nations League should have been, this is what we're going to do, 3-4-3. We're going to create an alternative style of football to the one that we normally go with. This is what should have happened a year ago or whatever. And then you go into your major tournament with multiple abilities to change a system around if needed.
Tinkering with a formation mid-tournament, you got to leave that to the geniuses of this world for me. That's, tinkering with formations in the middle of a tournament after you've had 2-year build-up. Leave that for the absolute elite. And Ancelotti does that, and Mourinho, a Klopp, a Guardiola, you say, fuck, they're good, aren't they? But you've got to have won a lot of trophies to get away with something like that, I think. Otherwise, you just look like you listen to the media too much, you panicked, and you don't really know what you're doing. A little thumbs up emoji just popped up on the screen. I'm such a fucking millennial. I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. But yeah.
I don't want to make it like burn away from England too much, but that's what every top golfer says. You have your swing on that day, and you have to play with the swing that you turn up with. And tinkering in the middle of a golf round isn't the way to do it. It's the same as a manager at an international tournament in football. Tinkering in that middle point when, look, you've got what you've got. Now you need to do the best that you can with what you've got. And that's not necessarily what we did for the first 4 games of this tournament, first 5 games of this tournament. And then suddenly it was okay. It was good. Like I said, I enjoyed the Dutch game. I really thought we played well in that first 45 minutes. And then the Dutch killed that game. It wasn't great to watch the second half, but that's because the Dutch changed their style and did what every other team has done and sat back and smothered a midfield. Spain didn't do that. I thought that would mean that we'd be able to open them up a bit more, but we never saw enough of the ball, and we never looked composed enough on the ball. And you talk about players like John Stones. Oh, he's great on the ball in possession, but they were made to look like children against men in that style.
It just on next England manager, Graham Potter at the moment is the favourite. Then you've got Eddie Howe, Pochettino, and then the Klopp, the Guardiolas, the Tuchels, the Mancinis, the Thiago Motta, the Deschamps. Exactly. So like the more, but realistically, as it stands, it's Potter or Howe. If you're Gareth Southgate, do you want another 2 years? Do you want a Nations League and a World Cup? Or do you want to get out and take your money and enjoy your family and play golf and walk the dog?
I'd walk away at this point. Like the only way you can go is down, I think, from here, unless you win it. And I just don't necessarily see it happening.
He's not winning it. He's not winning it. He might win the Nations League, but he's not winning a major tournament.
But I'd love Poch to take over. That was a name that springs off the sheet.
Nice
very
fella.
Quickly, and knows how to bring young players in. Has a defined style of football and tries to embed it at all levels. For me,
is he not another Sven-Göran Eriksson though? Bit too nice.
Sven-Göran Eriksson, no, because Poch is ruthless. Poch has still got that ruthless streak. He shows it every so often in the media, and I think behind closed doors, I think he's actually a straight talker. He's an arm around the shoulder if the players need it, but I also think he can give that tough love if it's needed, if people aren't playing well and doing what he wants. And look, what he did at Tottenham, I thought was excellent. And if he can take a smidgen of that and drop it with a little bit of magic stardust on that England squad, I'm always been a big fan of Poch as well. So if he's there and England could go and get him, him over Howe or Potter all day long. Like, Potter's shown that he's already out of his depths at big club level. An England job is as big as a Chelsea
People
job.
would say that about Poch, mate.
No, because Poch took Tottenham to a Champions League final. He
Didn't
had
win
them
it,
contesting.
Southgate's taken us to 2 finals, didn't win it.
Yeah, but
yeah. All right, let's talk about Spain before we wrap up, Ollie. By the way, bloody great morning to be a Spaniard, eh? As in, Carlos Alcaraz wins the Wimbledon title yesterday. And by the way, he dismantled Novak Djokovic in that final. And I just want to say, Ollie, you know how when there's a great sportsman comes along, you never think there'll be another Messi. You never think there'll be another like Djokovic or whatever. But they do come along. They just do. And Alcaraz is that in terms of Federer came along and everyone, eulogized about Roger Federer, and then like Nadal beat his slam record, then Djokovic beat his slam record, and Alcaraz, if he stays fit over the next decade, beats his slam record. So it's crazy how in sport, in the moment, you're like, you'll never see anything like it. There'll never be another Pele. There'll never be another this. And there just is. Like, it might take a while, might take 10 years, might take 20 years, might take 50 years to see another Tiger Woods or whatever, but it does. They do come round, and that's the beauty of sport, really. There is always the next best thing. There is the real deal. You've got to hype up like 100 before that happens, but when they do come through, it's great. So yeah, but what a great morning to be a Spaniard, eh? Alcaraz wins the Wimbledon title, and then Spain pick up another international trophy and playing nice football as well.
And they had Sergio Garcia winning the players' competition on Live this week as well.
Lovely.
So, there was a wonderful moment. Sergio Garcia and John Rahm were playing against. Were also with Brooks Koepka in a 3-ball on Live on Sunday. And Brooks Koepka, American through and through, but he comes down wearing a Italia 90 England shirt to the tee for the first tee off. all the Spaniards are like giving him a bit of crap. I loved that. I thought it was really good. It's not too often I give Liv their flowers, but that was very strong. I don't think you'd see that on a PGA tournament for sure. But no, look, the trouble is with the Spain side is you look at it and you go, oh God, this is like another generation, isn't it? I mean, Alvaro Morata's probably the weakest part of that side. And there are a lot of clubs that would take Alvaro Morata as their starting centre forward. I mean, Cucurella's come out and kind of had a jibe at Gary Neville, because Gary Neville said, Cucurella is the reason why I don't think Spain can win this competition. I don't think they'll get there. And Cucurella has screenshotted that and then posted it with, looks like we got there, Gary. And yeah, making ridiculous comments like that about a player at club level and comparing it to international level, it's just ludicrous, because an international manager knows where to put his players in the best position, or should do. That should happen at club level as well, but if it doesn't, that doesn't mean that international level they're going to be out of their depth or anything like that. Cucurella probably had the best fullback role of the whole tournament. For me, he was outstanding. So there's a bit of egg on the face for the Neville boys, and just in general, like Williams, Yamal, Rodri, Fabian Ruiz ran the show. I mean, 3 years ago at Napoli, I wouldn't have said Fabian Ruiz would be the key central midfielder in that Spain side, but look, he's grown into that role, and it just screams of a team that know what they're doing. Every single player just knows their simple role, and then they have a team collective. It's excellent, and it's what Spain have done for the last 15 years, basically.
Danny Olmo, by the way, I don't know if this was like really subtle elite trolling, but pre-match, he goes out for the walk around. I don't know if you saw this, with like a teacup. And I don't know whether like he was genuinely having a cappuccino like 2 hours before kickoff, or he was like having a little dig at the English. But I just thought that's a hilarious little unusual like very harmless jab. Like, what does he think he's gaining from that? But also I kind of think it's fantastic. Like, it's just funny. Like, that is funny. And he was sort of giving it the British T-sip. So yeah, can I also make a point about having 2 co-commentators on a. This is kind of with my producer cap on, Ollie. So in the Wimbledon final, they had Nick Kyrgios and Tim Henman as the 2 co-commentators, both of whom are absolutely exceptional. Tim Henman is obviously extremely likable, kind of household name in the tennis world, pulls it really well, a really good broadcaster. And Nick Kyrgios is also a great broadcaster in a completely different way, a bit edgier, not afraid to like butt in, say things. He's obviously got direct and very close experience to what it's like to actually face like Djokovic and all the big guns. But it's so difficult to manage because you've also got your lead commentator and the co-commentators talking over each other. It's so difficult, and I think they're both exceptional. I think the BBC's team in general is superb, but in my opinion, there's a better way to do the dual commentator with tennis, and that's that every game, have it as the lead commentator and select one of your co-commentators to be the co-commentator for that game, unless the lead brings in, let's say Henman's the co-commentator for that individual game, unless the lead or Henman brings in Kyrgios because they have a certain insight they want to come in. But I think there should have been more structure to it because it felt to me just quite chaotic. Just a kind of sidebar, but I thought it was interesting.
I think we've seen that as well in that England semi-final. I mean, I was, again, in a pub, so it was difficult to completely hear, but we had the BBC on anyway with Mowbray and Shearer for last night. But for the Netherlands game, obviously, it was on ITV, Matterface with Dixon and Ali McCoist. And Dixon and Ali McCoist, you find just two people saying the same thing, or like one will pick up on something, but then the other one won't build on that point. They'll go to a completely different point, and you suddenly find that your audio is bouncing around all over the place a bit. I don't think it works in football. I think football's too fast, too quick, and there's too many differing opinions. That leave that for, not even for the post-show on television, leave it for the Monday morning kind of aftermath or something. I don't like it when there are kind of 5-6 pundits that we had in the build-up on both channels for every single game, and it's like, it's too many cooks.
I don't blame networks from experimenting with it, Ollie. Because when we grew up, it was literally like the commentator, maybe you got a co-commentator, and then the punditry was like one pundit and the anchor. It was very, very slim. And obviously now there's greater appetite for more around the sport, so there's more going on. So I don't blame like networks for going bigger and bigger and bigger, but I think now you're at kind of maximum capacity. Now you strip it down a little bit, I would say.
Yeah. You need to think less about like getting everybody's point in and more about making this work streamline and being smooth and kind of easy on the ears, basically. But look, it's a really difficult act to juggle as well. I did a Super Bowl where I had two co-commentators with me, and we were very lucky in that they just bounced and they got the timing, and you could give a glance to one or tap the other on the shoulder if you wanted them to come in on a point, or you tee them up a bit. But it was very lucky that they found that immediate rapport, Phoebe and Greg, straight away. Whereas, I was thinking, God, what if they both start talking over each other? What if they both start arguing, making a point, and you're trying to get back to the actual action and talking about the game kind of thing? So it's a very nerve-jangling one to manage. I don't have sympathy for every commentator that has to deal with that, let alone the producers and everybody else on sound trying to manage that as well. But it's not offensive yet. If we get egregious and we have like three people, I think then you bring in that like VAR expert as well and stuff, and I'm just like, okay, who's talking now? Maybe that gets a bit too much for me. But it's also a personal preference thing, because some people
completely. Some people just love the more, which I do also understand. So yeah, let's wrap up, Ollie. We mentioned famous sporting families the other week, and I came up with Judy Murray. You immediately like smashed that out of the water with Richard Williams. But my friend Rob sent me a WhatsApp straight after that podcast saying, how about the Smith siblings, which is a very notable family in British boxing, 4 brothers, Paul, Stephen, Liam and Callum, all of which had like massive success as professional boxers. And I just think to produce four sons that all become professional sports men is quite some feat. I mean, there must have been some pressure in that household.
Yeah, they round the table. I mean, that's literally jabbing each other around the table, isn't it? Sunday roast or something like that. Yeah.
It would have been more impressive if there were 3 boxers and one like swimmer or one like diver or something like that, like ballerina.
It'd be the youngest as well. The youngest would definitely be like, oh, I can't live up to these 3. I'm going elsewhere. You guys do your thing.
Motocross.
Yeah, real niche, deep sea diving, that kind of thing. Free diving champion or something. No. Yeah, just overall quickly on the tournament as well. I know it's been very football, this one. We're trying to do all sports, but it has to be all about football, this one, really. It was good. It wasn't great. It didn't feel... The expansion of the Euros didn't feel too much in terms of... There weren't many sides that you looked at and went, I cannot watch that. I cannot watch that. In the same way that I look at a World Cup draw and I'm like, ooh, jeez. It just feels like even the players are showing that it's a bit tired this summer. A little tired across the board from everybody, and the quality wasn't...
a lot of football.
Same in the Copa America. Obviously, Argentina winning it last night in extra time against Colombia. That was a slog, that game. That was not an enjoyable 90 minutes, really. There was a handful of chances, but Argentina didn't create anything, really, until the second half. And you think of the litany of stars they've got.
I can't let this pod end, Ollie, without asking you about Darwin Nunez and the Uruguayan players going into the crowd and like throwing punches. I don't know whether you've seen this or like.
Yep.
I mean, Ollie, if that happens in the Euros, it's spoken about so much you can't believe, but because it's obviously all the scenes are still there, and I'm sure it's sort of massive news in the Americas, but because the Euros was going on, it was tucked aside. Somehow it wasn't quite a big story here, but it's absolutely wild. Imagine like Declan Rice wading into the fans and just throwing punches. It was crazy.
It's not Marcus Rojo with a fire extinguisher, so is it even really an incident?